Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to the main event, the history of the Champions League. I'm Martin, your host as ever, and David is still in Florida, so it's just Adam and I to bring season 11-12 to its conclusion, dramatic as it may be. How are we doing, Adam?
Good, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to this. Seems to be a Chelsea-Barcelona game. As always, an epic in here, and it's the same here. I'm not. I think I said last week. I'm not a massive fan of the final. It's very much as you'd expect, I guess, for these two teams at this point. But yeah, I think the semi-final is the big one in terms of drama, isn't it, for Chelsea anyway?
It is. I mean, the finals, yeah, it's fairly dramatic, but yeah, I know what you mean over the course of those two. Let's leave that to one side and let's go to that absolutely titanic semi-final on the other side. Two teams that two clubs that I don't think you're very fond of, Adam, but would you concede that these are maybe the best versions of themselves in this particular season? Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, of course.
Yeah, no, I would say so. Like I mentioned last week, I think this Bayern Munich team are starting to become a little bit more interesting. They've got that blend there, I think, of youth and also absolute elite talent at their prime. So yeah, if I could like a Bayern team, I think this one comes quite close. Madrid wise, I think they've sort of taken the handbrake off from the year before, and they're now sort of maybe closer to what Josie's Chelsea might have been.
Yeah, first season Chelsea. Yeah.
10 years before or 8 years before. So it's not exactly as defensive, or it's not nowhere near as defensive as it was the year before. And I think you see that with the amount of goals that they score in the league for one, and the points that they rack up. So yeah, I'd say this is his best version of Madrid for sure.
We'll get to Chelsea-Barcelona in a moment. In the 10 years before the semi-final, I don't think anyone was in a Champions League semi-final more often than Chelsea and Barcelona, so they clearly have pedigree there. Adam, because I'm a massive nerd, just set up a wee league table as such, but I gave 10 points to Champions League winner, 5 points to finalists, and 2 points for any semi-finalists if they reached there and finished. Over the course of the period that we're looking at, which is the start of the Champions League up to 13-14, which is where we'll stop. Unsurprisingly, Real Madrid are top on 50 points, but only 3 points ahead of Barcelona and Milan with 47. And Bayern just that wee bit behind in fourth spot with 41 points. So these, as this semi-final comes up, to absolute heavyweights, complete Champions League royalty, as I said before. The games between them are often kind of proper contests, never really a blowout. And that's kind of what we get here, I think. First leg in Munich. And it looks as if it's heading for Josie's kind of perfect result, really, a 1-1 draw away, until your man Mario stepped up at the last minute. Pepe probably should have cut out that cross, but it was, from memory and looking back, there was a lot in this first leg.
Yeah, there was. I think, so close, like you mentioned, that would be Josie's dream at this stage. I think, there is quite a lot of action in this one. I think maybe I'm guilty of looking at that other semi-final and thinking that's where the drama is, but you're right, another 6 goals over on this side as well. What I think I quite liked about this was obviously Madrid at this time, like I mentioned, we're kind of fully in this 4-2-3-1 system at the time. They did maybe sit a little bit deeper in this game. I guess you would, because A, you're away from home, and also B, like we mentioned there, the attacking firepower that Bayern have, particularly on the wings and in the middle, I would say as well. So I think that maybe not necessarily played into Bayern's hands, but it was one of those things. It was an obvious thing that was going to happen. Philippe Lam and David Alaba pushed high, and they really helped to pin Madrid's fullbacks and wingers back, to be honest. And then in the middle, you've obviously got Toni Kroos and Schweinsteiger, wasn't it? In there, sort of dictating tempo and trying to keep the ball. So yeah, in a way, it was a bit of a role reversal as to how Madrid had been playing, that sort of high pressing, controlling the tempo from the middle and then attacking with the wing backs. But I think Bayern just obviously being at home sort of took the ascendancy in this, and I don't really think the goal at the end was not warranted. I think over the piece they probably deserved to get the 2-1 over the course of the game for sure.
It was a tap in, but he's there, Adam, and he's a throwback in many ways. I mean, his hair looks like he's come from some kind of movie about 1950s high school in America. But he's a throwback in a centre forward way because he misses so many chances, but he's still there. He doesn't seem to let it faze him because the amount of chances involved in here is quite high. Where you think really should be doing better, but just putting himself in the mix, in the frame, and it's such a vital goal. Ronaldo's involved in the Real equaliser, very aware, alert, good cutback to Mesut Ozil, who delights very much in scoring back in Germany. I don't know if it had come before this. Maybe it came at Manchester United, but I don't really have that memory as acute here. Just looking back of him looking a wee bit like Roberto Carlos around free kicks and this desperation free kicks anywhere near goal. He had to be taking everything, but it's almost too stressful. He kind of gets
so bad at them
too much. Yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, but at United he wasn't, right. Famously, he was making the ball move in the air and deceiving goalkeepers all ends up. But it's just almost a perfect example of someone who wants this trophy for this club too much, and some of his efforts in this game are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, there was another game. One I think we might have covered a few years back where he had just ridiculous amounts of shots that were just never on at all. I can't remember what one it was. Might have been a Man United game. But yeah, I think so. It's funny that Roberto Carlos one because everybody will say, "Oh, what a great free kick taker," and I think what you really mean is what a great free kick. And Little and Laugh, which is the one that he'll obviously be remembered for. After that, not so many really when you think about it. So it's funny. It's a first impression thing, isn't it? I guess it just ingrains in your brain that he has these big thighs, Roberto Carlos, and therefore he hits free kicks, and he must have hit that one, so he must have hit loads, but it didn't really happen. I think that's the case. Yeah, it's Ronaldo first of all wanting to be the man and stepping up and taking ownership, but it's maybe to the detriment, I guess, when you've got other players certainly within that team that are very, very good, probably better free kick takers, but they weren't quite getting anywhere near kicking it.
And in Madrid, then, can you remember? I felt, Adam, I'll be honest. That seems a crucial goal from Mario Gomez, but it's probably not going to be enough. Just knowing how this Madrid team are that season, especially at home, Champions League, the atmosphere all up. They go ahead, early penalty that Ronaldo converts, and then quite a nice goal actually to put Madrid further in control in the attack, because obviously that penalty would have put them ahead in away goals as it was in those days. Important then for Bayern to get back completely level fairly quickly. It was only just over 10 minutes after the Ronaldo goal, and another penalty that Arjen Robben scores. Soft, brave referee to give that in those circumstances, to be honest, in those conditions, but he did, and it was converted. Maybe the less said about Robben's penalty taking later on, but it was absolutely all set up, and Bayern, they weren't scared, were they? They kept going forward. Again, I wonder if they just lacked maybe a number 9 who was just a bit more clinical than Mario Gomez, because the chances and they were willing to get high up the pitch. And I'm not sure Real Madrid knew what to do. And this, I think we've been fair. A Real Madrid side that season who scored more goals than have ever been scored in La Liga and still to this day has never been beaten. So they are far more adventurous, but I wonder if they were caught between two stools a wee bit on this night, because that away goal was terrifying.
Yeah, and the Mario Gomez point, I completely agree, but it's funny, we talk about someone who could be more clinical when the week before he scores his 12th goal in the Champions League, and that one, I think Messi gets 14. That's this insane year that we've spoken about before. He gets 14 in the Champions League, but I completely agree. Yeah.
Does that show you then, Adam, just how many chances that Bayern Munich team were creating?
Yeah. I think caught between two ideals is maybe how I would describe it. There's also quite a bit of pressure on this as well. There's pressure anyway, but yeah, you have to, outside of just Madrid getting to a final. Barcelona the night before. Obviously, which everyone was geared up for an all Spanish final, particularly, and we've spoken about this before. We can't explain how suffocating and chaotic this period was in Spain for these two teams. So the fact that there was an all Champions League final would just have been incredible after the last couple of years of going neck and neck. Madrid had just won the league the weekend before. So I think that was Mourinho's his fourth league title in the fourth different country.
Yeah.
He was now going for and wanted to be the first coach to win the European Cup or Champions League with 3 different clubs, and obviously in 3 different countries as well. So there's all that kind of pressure. I think the Barcelona thing not really being a thing, but then still wanting to go and push ahead with that. And I think he had said, I don't know if it was before the game in a pre-match press conference or the day before's press conference, he didn't think Bayern would really change their approach despite being 2-1 up, because looking at Madrid's record that year, it's probably unrealistic that Madrid aren't going to score, I think. So Bayern are basically treating the game as a draw, if you like, and they want to, regardless of away goals, regardless of the goal that they got late on, they want to come out and get a goal anyway. And I think you maybe see that. So I think maybe Madrid, again, just not quite sure. They didn't want to go too gung-ho if Bayern are also going to go gung-ho, because it's not in Mourinho's nature to do that at all. I think certainly over the last 4 or 5 years here. So I can kind of get on board with that. Maybe caught between two stools piece. And I guess looking back, penalties are decisive, I think, and they are. I don't think there's any complaints about, as in the penalties within the game. I don't think there's any complaints about them, but it would have been interesting, I guess, if, I don't know, something had happened there where it was outside the box or whatever, or it wasn't a penalty. Because in terms of, it's such a definitive thing, isn't it? Getting a penalty when it can, especially when they got it, like you said. If that does start to go into the later stages of the game, would Madrid be sort of shutting up shop a little bit, and then it'd be Bayern's turn to try and break them down, and can they get hit in the break? All that sort of stuff comes into play in the second half. But yeah, I would agree they maybe just got a little bit caught, maybe occasion and the flow of the game.
Cristiano misses first up in that shootout, Adam. That maybe sets the tone again. I still think just wanting it far, far too much, and it kind of collapses after that, doesn't it? Alaba and Gomez score for Bayern Munich. Kaká falls up with a miss. Sometimes I'm bad for forgetting that he played for any other club but Milan, to be honest.
I know, yeah.
Xavi Alonso's not going to miss. And then Bayern shake, Cruz and Lam miss, Ramos misses. It's a bit of a disaster before Schweinsteiger finally kind of gets it over the line. And Mourinho's devastated by this. I think he goes back to Ronaldo's house, actually. They just have a little moment together, because he will have been utterly assured, we'll get to the final in a minute, they would have won. And I believe they would have won, actually. I think actually fairly convincingly, as it turns out. And this night feels like a bit of a turning point in his career, Adam. You know, we talk about it a lot. We've talked about this show a lot about these two faces these two halves of a career, because it looked, as I said, or as we've said, it looked as if they were really purring. And if they win a shootout, or if they get something at the end of that game, and Benzema is so close with a brilliant effort, actually, they go and win it, how different that becomes, because I think he goes well in himself into this kind of twisted, kind of perverted version of, and basically just a pantomime version, really, of that. That's what he's become. So I do wonder how pivotal that 25th of April 2012 was. His record in penalties is awful. He's lost 10 out of 12 shootouts. One in the Carabao Cup, I think, for United, maybe, and Spurs, actually, and one in the Super Cup, I tell you. So, lost the big ones, it's fair to say. And, penalties are a lot about confidence, and I just wonder how overbearing he can be in his players in general, and whether at that kind of moment they wilt. It's just too important. But Bayern, fine margins, but possibly deserve winners overall.
Well, I would say so. Yeah, I think some of the play in the second half, I think, is terrific. Just that one touch, always running at pace. We mentioned Ribery and Robben, just fantastic on the top of their game. I love Robben. At this time particularly, but even way back to the Chelsea days, he's always been someone that I was very fond of, and I think he's absolutely in full flow there. So yeah, I would say overall, even excusing the lottery of the penalties, I think Bayern probably would have been annoyed if they hadn't won it. But like you said, like we say, it's get to penalties and then anything can happen. And yeah, I think despite, the year after, they're not Barcelona win by, I think it's about 15 points, win the Liga the year after. They get to the semi-finals again, Madrid in the Champions League, but it does start to feel like that. Maybe it is just that thing we speak about with him, with Mourinho and his third season syndrome, and it's number one, basically getting settled in, putting the charm offensive on. Number two, season two, he kind of consolidates power and becomes the undisputed man. And then season three, it maybe either all goes to his head or people are just fed up with fed up at the dictatorship and start to tail off or whatever, and it kind of all collapses. But I think this is the first time I can remember that, in terms of brilliant first season, possibly even better second season, but then it all goes to pot. And I think that's just a personality thing rather than anything else. But yeah, I would agree. Overall, Bayern probably deserved to go through, and I would also agree with your point 100% that Chelsea against Madrid would have been a bit of a non-event. Madrid would have comfortably won that by a good few goals for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I do wonder if it would have still have turned out that repeating cycle. You're absolutely right. Because after this night, what does he win? One more league title with Chelsea, League Cup with United, Europa League with United. That's it, isn't it?
There's trophies, but it's not anywhere near the first 10 years. Yeah.
No, it's not league titles and not the big. Oh, he's won the Conference League, of course, with Roma, and he'll point to all three. Okay, but Bayern through and at home, of course, in that final. Destiny is calling. As I said, Chelsea and Barcelona, no sides had been in more Champions League semi-finals than those two over the 10 years preceding this season, Adam. Some classic matches in the past, and there's no edge to this either. It's a 1-0 win for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. It could have been anything, I'll be honest. Just chances not taken, I guess, from Barca, and some last-ditch defending and good goalkeeping and all the rest of it. Fabregas playing in the front three.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just
this for him in that brilliant midfield.
Yeah, I think it's just this control aspect that we've spoken about. With Guardiola, it was, I think we'd said before that a sort of real against the Barcelona equals Spain thing in terms of the suffocation of possession. But I think if any season, this one is probably the one that it becomes closer, because they are basically just relying on Messi up top, to be honest. More often than not, you've got someone like Cesc Fabregas in there with Xavi, Iniesta, Sergio Busquets. It wasn't unheard of for Keita to be playing in there as well. And it becomes sort of 4, maybe 5 central midfielders, maybe in the way that Spain were doing around about this time, and it was becoming a bit slow, suffocating possession. Guess we can very much come on to it in the next couple of years, but going to Germany, I think is not the making of Guardiola. That sounds a bit much, but certainly it gives him that, I think, appreciation for or reappreciation, I should say, for pressing and wingers and pace out wide, because as we've just said, he goes to a Bayern team which has all of that in abundance, and he's still able to tweak it, which we'll come on to next year, probably do a deep dive on Bayern and that, but he's able to tweak it and evolve things as he goes. So I think it's a good move overall, I think, for him. But yeah, I think Fabregas being in the attack doesn't really sort of make sense for what it was this season. It was just get as many ball players on the park as we can and get the ball to Messi, who will do the business.
And Alexis Sanchez spearheading that, I guess. And he's unlucky, Adam. I think he hits the bar. He misses some good chances as well. I mean, there's so much going on. But for Chelsea, the difference makers, Drogba, Adam, final season, 3 years on from the last semi-final with Barcelona, the fucking disgrace and all of that. And even at that age, he's just very, very aware in the box and finishes it nicely. And it's obviously decisive on the night.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. 72% possession in this game Barcelona had, and I remember thinking, obviously at the time, possession was becoming more in vogue. People were actually using it as a metric. Yeah, as a metric to see how good a team was, and I think that would very quickly disappear with the rise of gegenpressing coming with Klopp. Dortmund, that would become a bit more fanciful, but I always remember seeing that and thinking, Jesus. And I think I'm pretty sure the second leg game, it was above 80% Barcelona got, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, no surprise if it was.
Which is nuts. But again, probably stands up to that theory of it doesn't really matter if you're not putting the ball in the net. So yeah, I think I remember this game and thinking, I remember coming out for this game and thinking, Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, there was still that little bit of invincibility, I think, there from even the Mourinho days, or maybe if there wasn't, you sort of felt like there was. If they only got out, if they only left there with one goal, then they're going to get massively outclassed in the Nou Camp. It's going to be an absolute onslaught, and I didn't give Chelsea any chance at all of going through. I think we mentioned what Di Matteo did last week, but just to sort of touch on again, it's maybe no surprise when you're basically coming in to get as far as you can in this competition. You're going to be as solid as possible. There was no difference in this one. You had the fullbacks who are not, I was going to say not naturally defensive, but maybe that's a bit of a slight against Ashley Cole, because he could very much do both exceptionally well. But he's more in my head thinking of him as a kind of rampaging fullback. Maybe not as much as Biswingma on the other side, but he definitely could more than defend on that side. But they sort of stayed a little bit narrower. Again, we mentioned to deal with Messi and Sanchez, who were going to sort of come in and play rather than being out on the wide sides, the width. And I think because of that, they just lacked a bit of cutting edge Barcelona. You've got that really solid Chelsea midfield in there. John Obi Mikel gave Messi absolutely no time at all. And yeah, I think this was Drogba's 39th. It was his 39th Champions League goal as well, and I think it came from their only. It wasn't their only shot. It was definitely their only shot on target. So it was, I guess, a smash and grab, if it can be a smash and grab at home in the first leg. I'm not sure if that counts, but I definitely didn't give them any chance going to the Nou Camp at all.
Exactly the same as Madrid and Bayern, to be honest. It was just valiant. Yeah. Well done. You're keeping this live. We've got second legs that will be worth watching, but it probably won't be enough. Ashley Cole, by the way, probably the best Chelsea defender on that night. Even at left back, he was superb. And they'll need to do a lot of defending in the Camp Nou, of course, and it all seems to be following the expected script, Adam, doesn't it? Barcelona are 2 up just before half time. Busquets and Iniesta, and Iniesta's finish is lovely, curled and low. In between that, John Terry has a moment of absolute madness, and just no need to kind of lash out. He does. He's sent off. And talking about Ashley Cole in the first leg, Gary Cahill in this evening, in order to, in the second half, to kind of stem that tide, really. Cahill was superb, I thought. But yeah, a couple of minutes before half time, everybody has seen what they expected to see. Chelsea won't be back. And then they get that lifeline, and it's a lifeline that at half time puts them ahead on away goals, and that's the Ramires goal. We know what happens in the second half. We'll go on to it, and because of that, this goal's forgotten about. It is a beautiful, just aesthetically perfect strike. The way he lifts the ball. This is what injury time in the first half. It's gorgeous. I forget how beautiful that goal was.
Yeah, it was a lovely goal, and I feel like I say this every week, but great time to score as well.
Yeah.
Particularly because Terry's been sent off 10 minutes before Iniesta scores, and you're thinking, right, okay, the writing's on the wall here a little bit. They'll just sort of motor and that will be that. Brilliant time to score, and what a brilliant goal. That in a weird kind of way, the Terry sending off. How often do we? It can go either way. I think with a player getting sent off in that situation, you just end up collapsing. But I just think the way that Chelsea played, in a way, it sort of just took the notion that they might counter-attack much more in the second half sort of out of them as an option. They just said, we've got absolutely no option here but to batten down the hatches and see what we can do. There's no way we can even try and get on an equal footing in the second half because we've got that man down. I just checked there, 84% possession Barcelona had in the game, and they hit the post or the bar 4 times. But again, you think, okay, well that's loads, but you've not done very much with it really, because fair enough, you've hit the post and the bar, but that's still not on target. You're not making the goalkeeper work, all that sort of stuff. So there was obviously the usual cries about anti-football, etc. As is there when those things go their way. But ultimately, I think it's one of those things. Did you play well enough too? Were you able to convert your chances? Probably not. Therefore, you can have as many pot shots as you like, I guess, against a team that's just not going to let you get through.
And okay, well, we've got a game of it, and that's magic. And early on the second half, it looks like any hopes of a kind of live late finish going all the way, going the distance are dashed, because Barcelona get a penalty and Messi doesn't miss penalties. But weirdly, it's he misses, which is odd, and I know he's missed a couple of big penalties, Copa America as well, but rattling the bar that way, I'm not. It just felt weird. It was almost like, those clips where you see that someone's quite clearly through technology kind of moved the ball artificially. It just didn't look right, and maybe there's a sense that this could be a kind of weird night, and Chelsea just dug and dug and dug further in. As I said, Cahill magnificent, and look, this is a Barcelona side who have, they scored 20 goals in the groups. They've scored 13 goals in 3 knockout games before, these legs. Didn't score at Stamford Bridge, but they're 2 up on this night. So clearly they're firing. Might not be your ideal Barcelona iteration of the Guardiola era, but they know where the goals are, and it Chelsea are brilliant in a defensive.
Yeah.
Shape organisation. Yeah, they do what they have to do, but obviously they got away with one there, and it's Drogba, and we'll come back to this, who nearly becomes the villain so often.
Yeah, you're suggesting that Abramovich has taken on some deep state help to force the penalty for Messi at the bar, then I'm all on board with that as a conspiracy theory. But yeah, like I said, I just think this was just a bad matchup for Barcelona, a team like Chelsea playing in this way. It's just, despite the first leg, and I know I said it felt like an inevitability afterwards, and it's 100% the benefit of hindsight, but how often do we see it in these games? As a prime example, a couple of years before in the final with Inter, these type of matchups, the sort of instigating or dominating team needs to have that cutting edge. They need to have that other option, whether it's someone coming off the bench that can give them a bit of firepower, or a bit of cutting edge, I guess, when the others aren't quite able to sort of dance their way through. Just a way to change the attack, a different focus that you could punt a long ball up and see what happens. They just didn't really have that at this stage, and when it comes to the crunch, I think they need it, because they could have. I know they scored 2 goals before it, but they could have sort of played all second half. I don't think, and there just would have been no way through. It was just a procession until the end.
Yeah, because Inter obviously spoiled them the 2 years before, as you say. They got past a similar Chelsea in 2009, but as we went into a lot of detail there, that could easily have gone another way on the night. I think that's not harsh to say either. The Manchester United side that pipped them in 2008 to that final, Ferguson played in a similar-ish way in the Nou Camp. So, clearly, this is the way to try and blunt them, but they got a wee bit lost in themselves, very much panicking. Keeper, or just keeper wasn't thrown up, but near enough. Everything was getting flung at this, and another corner, I think, comes to nothing in Chelsea break, and all of a sudden you can hear Gary Neville's excitement very quickly, and because it becomes apparent that Fernando Torres is through and goal. Fernando Torres, who I don't think it's unfair to say, Adam, had been a shambles of a signing, really, until then. It had not worked out. He had a day at Old Trafford, I think, I'm sure, where the chance he missed, I'm still not entirely sure how he managed to. So he was a bit of a joke figure, and yet here he is, athletic player, just trundles the ball into the net quite coolly and takes the opprobrium and whatever else that was thrown at him in that corner of the Camp Nou. But he was the unlikely hero on the night.
I was still expecting him to miss. I know it's
exactly
one of those things, but yeah, I have to say, by now I was expecting something to come out about Torres. I have to say, in terms of the whole Ronaldo at World Cup '98 situation. I'm not suggesting it be anything as severe as that, but it was almost like he was lobotomized. It was almost like I don't know how to describe it. I think I've maybe referenced it before, but that film Space Jam from the '90s, I used to love when I was a wee guy, and it was like the aliens stealing Michael Jordan's or the NBA's powers, and you're like, that is what it was like, because it's just insane to think how he was a couple of years before, or 3 or 4 years before at Liverpool, compared to what it is now. Maybe it was injuries, but it was such a drop off that there would still have been sparks of it, but it just felt like it felt like a mental thing. I think when you seen him, he was a different type of person on the field as well. I was expecting there to be a bit of a deep dive into that and the inner workings of it, but we don't seem to have really got one. But yeah, that obviously the Gary Neville scream is probably more immortalised than the Torres goal at this point. But when he did go through, I was still half expecting him to miss it.
Which is so weird, isn't it?
Just a bizarre turn. Yeah, I don't know what went on.
Yeah, I don't think it is much more complicated than some injuries affect confidence so much, and given he was quite a quick player, that's not all he was, but he clearly relied on quick a bit of that. He was such a burst of a player, and for that to go or he feels that went, and you only need to feel it in the margins, I guess, as an elite athlete. That probably did affect his mental state, and confidence is everything when it comes down to it. But yeah, it's such a massive drop off. Here he is, knocking or confirming that Barcelona would be out on their arse in this Champions League semi-final, and incredibly, given all their trials and tribulations that season, Abramovich is yet again a game away from achieving what he'd always wanted to achieve with a stand-in manager in Di Matteo. But it is in Munich, Adam. I said last week that's not always the kind of tap in that is quite often referenced. Teams can just want it too much. We've seen it happen so often, and I don't know what your percentage possession is here, but I don't imagine it would be too high for Chelsea in this affair either. No John Terry, huge miss, capital leader legend, blah blah blah. Ryan Bertrand coming in from nowhere. No, that was quite the story.
It definitely was. I think I remember had he been anywhere else at this point? He hadn't been out on loans or anything, had he, Ryan Bertrand? But I remember there was all the chat about the next Ashley Cole, and this and that, and you're thinking, right, okay. But he had I'm just checking there. He had a couple of loans. He was on loan at Nottingham Forest the year before, Reading, Norwich, pretty much your standard
Chelsea
standard Chelsea player at this time. You're getting farmed out to the Championship, and all sorts, and coming into this game playing the left side of midfield, didn't he? Played in front of Ashley Cole in this game. I guess just sums up. I keep avoiding using the word makeshift because I'm wary that they've still got a brilliant depth of talent there, but it just, I mean, makeshift in the sense that it was always going to be a temporary appointment. They knew it was going to be 3 or 4 months, and it was just, let's get there by hook or by crook. And I think nothing probably sums it up more than bringing in someone from nowhere to make his debut in the final. And I think he became the first. What was the stat I read earlier on? Trying to get this right because I butchered one about Italian players a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? What was it? The first player born in the Champions League era to win the Champions League. Is that right? I think that's the stat. Or maybe it was just about his final debut or something, making his debut. I don't know what it was, but either way, there was something about how young and ridiculous he was basically at that point. I think is the crux of it. But yeah, who would have pictured that when you're the year before on loan at Nottingham Forest, and then you come for your Champions League debut in the final against Bayern Munich in the Allianz Arena.
Yeah, I mean, he was born before the Champions League started, but yeah, it's the debut straight in, and no bother, and he was fine. So who would have made way then? Malouda maybe.
Ramires, I think it was certainly from
Ramires. Of course
semis.
It was. Of course, yeah, he was suspended. So yeah, but the options then though, you could have had a lot more attacking options, surely.
Yeah, well, the bench had.
He's a left back. He played with two. Yeah, so it's that decision.
Torres came on. Obviously, Sturridge is there as well. I think at that point. So yeah, and I think as well you could have. He obviously was playing Mata as well. So at a push, you could have brought in someone like Michael Essien was on the bench, so you could have done that, pushed Lampard up a little bit, and put Mata wide. So I can't remember the logic on it in terms of what Di Matteo was asked about it. Maybe it all got swept up in the emotion of actually winning it, but there were a few other options, and for whatever reason, he decided to go with Ryan Bertrand.
Ryan Bertrand, I like that pronunciation. Let's go with that for forevermore. I just think Malouda's your norm. If this is at home to Hull, then Ramires is suspended. Brilliant, right? Florian Malouda comes in, left-sided player, let's say the attacker, left winger, and old money, no problem. He's just doubling up with what, Robben in mind. You basically just play two left backs. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so, and also
Simple
still being able to, yeah, I guess so, because you've got Robben and Lamb, and then you'll have Schweinsteiger, sort of on that side as well. Anyway, so maybe there is a little bit of that. You've still got someone who will have the engine. He did have the engine to get up and get beyond, and swing some balls in for Drogba if he really was able to. But yeah, he'd be able to sort of double up. We've seen at Rangers, obviously, over the years, we've not been shy to go with two left backs under Walter Smith and even Ali McCoist at times. Maybe not at home at St Mirren is maybe not the right way to do it, but this is a different kettle of fish. So I guess, yeah, that makes sense. Could have been defensively, and then also young enough with the engine to get up and support as well.
Di Matteo was part of Villas-Boas's staff, right? So he's part of that team. Does he change much? Have Chelsea changed much since 2004 and Mourinho's arrival, fundamentally, in terms of their shape and how they do things?
I don't really think so. I think we said on one of the early episodes of this season that Villas-Boas was just, for me, he was playing just a ridiculously high line when he didn't necessarily have the defenders or the centre halves, I think, to do it. I remember seeing John Terry trying to play a high line and just getting absolutely roasted time and time again. So I think that's not really something we would have seen from Jose Mourinho. But overall, in terms of the shape, in terms of the structure, no, I don't think so. There maybe was under Villas-Boas, there maybe was a sort of tendency to be maybe less focused on coming down the flanks with wingers, and maybe more about building through the middle, if I can recall. But I don't think we're seeing a massive shift, and I think that's probably part of the reason why Villas-Boas got the job in the first place, trying to roll that dice and turn that trick again. And what Di Matteo did was, I think, just like we said, just much more secure, much more cautious, very much more of a 4-5-1 rather than even a 4-3-3. Removed that high line completely, and they didn't necessarily sit at the edge. Well, they did sit at the edge of the box for pretty much all of the latter stages of both these games. But yeah, I think he just made them a little bit more cautious, a little bit more hard to beat, and relied on trying to get a goal in a key moment.
Yeah. Bayern, same kind of shape, 4-2-3-1. Gomez at the heart. Ribery and Robben, you've talked about. Müller just filling that space in behind. They were young, but it's hard to even think of them really as that young. A young Tony Kroos at the time, with Bastian Schweinsteiger as well. What a midfield. Don't think they were brilliant at the back, Adam. You got Timichuk and Boateng. Yeah, I like Philip Lahm, obviously, but he must be kind of coming to the end, close to the end anyway. He's not really been turned into that midfielder yet. But you've got Neuer, so maybe you don't. When you've got that attack, you've got that goalkeeper. You can maybe afford those two centre halves.
Yeah, I was just about to say that this was Boateng's first season back after not exactly setting the header on fire at Man City, and I think he did offer a little bit more in the way of recovery pace. But you're spot on. When you've got Neuer there, Chelsea could probably have played that high line under Villas-Boas, and it'd have been fine because you've got Neuer coming out and sort of sweeper keeping it. So yeah, I think not great. Timichuk was someone that we spoke about, I'm pretty sure, when we did our Shakhtar deep dive, but not necessarily a centre half. More of a very much a defensive midfielder. I think that could probably step back if he could. Not particularly tall either, from what I remember. So yeah, I would say that's a bit of a weak point. David Alaba. What's going on with my pronunciations? Alaba must have been suspended or injured in this game as well, because it's Diego Contento, I think, that plays on that side as well. So yeah, I would have said defence was probably their weakness here. outside of Lamb, like you mentioned. But yeah, he must be over 30 by this point, and I think the move into midfield probably does him huge amounts of favours in terms of his longevity when Guardiola comes in. But yes, I mean, it's one of those things. You talk about the defence being a little bit brittle, but with Kroos and Schweinsteiger and having to get through that sort of second phase of attack, if you like, with Ribery, Muller and Robben buzzing about you, by the time you get to the Bayern defence, you're knackered, and if you get through them, then you've got Neuer rampaging out in front of you. So I don't think it was as big a deal as it maybe looks on paper, but all the same, I don't think they would have fancied or appreciated coming up against Drogba.
No one does. A quite huge 36% of possession, actually, just checked there for Chelsea in this final. But if you watch, it doesn't feel like that. I mean, they're just battered, as you'd expect. But it takes Bayern ages to get the breakthrough. 7 minutes to go, and it's Thomas Muller just kind of popping up at the back post. Such a weird goal, Adam. And I know there's been one before. I think Cech had made a save that looked pretty normal, but then he'd somehow managed to tip it over the bar from like half an inch off the ground or whatever. So he obviously kind of spilled it. So there were scary moments for Chelsea, but they were doing what they do, which is, just defend really, really well. Muller's sense of space, I know you love that a lot, and he was obviously famous for it around this time. But it's header down into the ground and into the roof of the net. Cech doesn't look great, but I'm not entirely sure what he can really do with it. I think it's one of those that maybe looks a lot more silly than it actually was, but it was an odd one. However, it was coming, and everybody watching, especially at home, neutral, thought, well, that's what we've been waiting for, and it's arrived, and that'll be that, because the place is going bananas, obviously.
Yeah, it's interesting because between the goals, so obviously Muller's goal, like you said, they take the lead. I had thought, I don't know about you, but I just assumed up until that point that it was going to follow the same sort of approach as the Barcelona games, and I know that didn't follow the approach, but I thought it would. It was looking like penalties, I think, for me in this game, because it just didn't feel like Chelsea were going to get Bayern were going to get anywhere near. But what I found quite interesting was when Bayern went 1-0 up, Jupp Heynckes took off Muller, and he brought on Daniel van Buiten, who was Belgian centre-half. Fine. Not amazing, but fine. And he put Timashuk up into midfield. But Di Matteo, like we know, brought on Torres for Solomon Kalou, as you would, I guess, because you've just lost a goal and there's 10 minutes to go. You're kind of going to have to go with it. So I thought Torres and Drogba playing, I don't know how many times that happened, but they never really. Torres isn't really going to do what Kalou did on that right hand side. So it was a bit of an interesting one. It wasn't quite I guess it was quite a show from Bayern of respect, shall we say, that they were expecting that onslaught to come, rather than maybe just relying on themselves and playing the way that they played and going for the second goal. If you like, they sort of just went a little bit more comfortable. And we've spoken on this before about, well, that is the time probably to be a little bit more defensive, but maybe in this situation where Chelsea are pretty much dead on their feet, let's be honest, maybe being a little bit more defensive when they could have went up and tried to kill the game might have made things different. Who knows?
He celebrates, Adam, when he's walking off, and just that, whether he's looking, I don't know, he's maybe looking up at someone particular in the crowd, but it's kind of like Rino Gattuso just kissing the trophy on the way down at half time in Istanbul or whatever. It just save it, because you'll have seen the Chelsea road here. They're not the best team in Europe, but they have something about them, and it's never done. And yeah, just looking back, obviously knowing what we know, it was like, oh, pal, just
Awkward.
sit down and just hope. Yeah, the Chelsea equaliser comes from a Mata corner. It's so easy to underrate this goal because it's a cross and a header, and those are out of fashion now. Someone kind of make them illegal if they could, probably. It is a thunderous header, and he has to get ahead of his marker, but he's not running onto the ball. He has to shape back a bit. I mean, it's fractions, but he has to shape his head back and still get that power. And it is, as I said, thunderous power. I think it's an incredible header. And again, it just doesn't get. Understand why it doesn't get the love, because there's other things. I could see Muller's goal in my mind's eye, maybe a lot easier than I could see Drogba's equaliser, just because it's kind of weird and wonderful. But this is there's so much strength and technique that's required here, and Bayern just obviously look stunned by it all. And I remember just again watching home going, when your name's in the cup, well, there's going to be another moment, obviously, where you maybe tick that off. But it's what a goal, what a man.
Was this his last game? Obviously, we've
Yeah,
his last game of this spell. Was this his the stat that always flies out, the 10 goals in 10 finals? This would have been the 10th one then, I guess, because I'm pretty sure it was throughout his Chelsea career, wasn't it? It wasn't throughout his career. Just remarkable when you think about it. Like 10 goals in 10 finals, just the absolute epitome. You took the words out of my mouth of a big game player. Yeah, I have to be honest. I did celebrate this one. I wasn't too fussed who would have went through, but just when it comes at that moment, it's just such a kick in the guts, I guess, for Bayern Munich. And it was a fantastic header as well. So yeah, I think it was certainly a very exciting way to end it and into penalties again, which I was probably starting to get a little bit fed up of, I think, at this stage. But yeah, nonetheless, they're always good for some drama.
Gary Neville at it again, but I forget that he's at it here as well, and not just the Torres thing. And I think I said last week, just the years obviously change your voice, and it's quite high pitched and nasally. I dare say also quite northwestern, and he's still there because he's quite proud of his roots, obviously, but he clearly has rounded it off a little bit to a more media centric way. But yeah, he's still shouting down the microphone as if he's watching it in the house there. And in extra time, Adam Drogba again nearly turns from hero to villain very quickly, because he brings down, I think he brings down Robben himself in the box, I think. But clear penalty, gets booked, and you can have a sense of what happens next, but it's not a great penalty, Adam. It's not a great penalty, and Czech is more than a match for it, and Chelsea are still in it. A wee beach ball thrown in from the crowd just as he's taking it, doesn't quite make it its way onto the pitch, but that was the moment. Certainly, I think I can't have been the only neutral thinking, yeah, they are somehow, and it's probably going to be penalties. Can I see them really getting another goal in normal time? But it's theirs tonight, because the tension just keeps building. And I said this last week, you have to win when it's at home, and it's too much, and it was too much for him.
Yeah, and I think this is possibly a good example of what I was saying earlier on. If they had potentially, if Robben had scored this penalty, I'd have been delighted for him, and in no uncertain terms. But then also maybe then Jupp Heynckes gets the benefit of, all right, okay, well you sort of closed it up a little bit after you scored, and then Drogba scored, fair enough. But then you've managed to get through in the extra time and get it, fair enough. But yeah, I think I would have liked that, I think, as an ending. I think that ultimately not to be. I think there was also Ivica Olic as well. We spoke about him being really, really clinical. There was I think late on there was a chance that he could have had a shot himself, and he never never took it on. I think he tried to pass, if I remember rightly, when he was through. So yeah, there's just these
Pressure
little
doesn't do that in a semi-final. Does not do
no,
that
I
in
know,
a semi.
puts these laces through it. But yeah, it's just these little quirks, I guess, when you get through to 120 minutes plus the fatigue, the decision making goes to pot, and then yeah, we know what comes after it, and you're then asked to hit some penalties, and all which would indeed be one that didn't score. So
When Bayern had the advantage, because Mata
yeah,
had missed a weak penalty from someone who again is so composed, but Lam and Gomez, Neuer, rattling home as goalkeepers. If a goalkeeper's taking a penalty out of choice out of that first five, I think it's going to be scored, and it's going to be scored with power, because they do seem confident. Luis does what he does as well, and Lampard just doesn't miss penalties really. Maybe once for England, but Ashley Cole also doesn't. Very, very good penalty taker, and it was Olic that followed him and missed, and or maybe sorry, I think Olic missed first, and then Cole stepped up, and Schweinsteiger again so reliable. He finished the job in Madrid, didn't he? And if there are script writers about, you've kind of got it here, right? And it's Drogba, penalty number 5. What should have been his last game. I hate when players have this ending and they come back for some kind of cameo years later, but it's never going to be the same. Just don't bother. But it was perfect because he said these frustrations. You mentioned he turns up in big games, but Chelsea have had they've had their difficulties in this competition, and that awkward kind of. I remember watching it at the time, that kind of awkward moment with Abramovich up in the crowd, because I think he'd been pressed on Di Matteo and what's happened next season, and clearly didn't want to hire him kind of long term. And now kind of like, well, kind of have to. He's given me everything I've wanted, and yeah, I think everyone maybe knew that this was not long for the world, but it was their night. And again, over the course of the last 10 years, they did deserve one.
yeah.
I think they've been very unlucky in Moscow, and the semi against Barca, the semi final against Liverpool. They've earned this trophy, I think.
No, I completely agree. I was a bit surprised when you mentioned that there in terms of the number of points, if you like, that they accrued over that period. They were certainly there and thereabouts. I wonder with Abramovich. I mean, it's obviously you're absolutely delighted to win it, and that was exactly what he wanted. But we know that he was a bit more of a romantic, shall we say? And that was one of the reasons I think for getting rid of Mourinho, because he wanted to win in the right way. I wonder if there's a little bit of him that was like really happy to win it, but I didn't want to win it like this. And then in that sense, it'd be quite funny to. Obviously, it's not something they'd ever admit, but you can imagine those type of owners or those type of people wanting to dominate and be it not to be a backs to the wall penalty kick thing. They want to go out and smash teams 3 and 4-0. He never really quite managed to get that.
A wee bit like Sir Alex, Adam. Yeah, I think on the night you don't care. I imagine.
No.
You do not care. But as the dust settles, you're right. Good to win it again, but in a kind of statement, definitive Roman Abramovich era Chelsea win, which didn't really happen. Again, they were in that kind of weird final against City. They were just clever again. They were never going to have more of the ball than City. City were always going to tie themselves up in knots, and they'll kind of pick their moments. But all good fun in the end. But yeah, it's Chelsea's. Bayern wouldn't have long to lick their wounds, of course, because they will be back, and Arjen Robben will have his moment as well to make Adam happy. Thank you.
Just a final point from me. I hate goalkeepers that take penalties. I don't think you should be allowed to after Sheila Vert. I think that should be they should have stopped it after that, because that was the most 90s thing ever. Not a fan of it. The Leverkusen keeper Hans-Jörg Butt didn't like that as well. Ever since, I think what was the game? There was a game in 2000 and something, like 2004, I think it was. Or or early 2000s where he scores and he's away celebrating, and then whoever it is that Leverkusen are playing take kick off and just lob him basically before he gets back in. Before he gets back in the net. I think it's a league game. Must be been about early 2004. So yeah, ever since then I'm like, this is a nonsense. You're just not going to get enough time. What if you miss it? And then the keeper just catches you. You're just staring at each other. So yeah, Sheila Vert, 90s. Maybe Campos. Did Campos take penalties for Mexico? He felt like he should, but I'm not sure he did. But that should have died out in the 90s. But yes, anyway, that's my probably my one Brexit opinion probably that I'll use up, is that goalkeepers shouldn't be taking penalty kicks. But yes, really enjoyed this one.
Yes, it's been a fun kind of weird season, which they usually go hand in hand. I don't think Jorge Campos took penalties. I think he was spending time seemingly with my sister designing goalkeeper tops in the 1990s with the kind of felt tip pens that she used to have for designing t-shirts. But there we are. That will wrap us up for 11-12. We've only got 2 more seasons to go, so 8 more episodes and maybe some kind of wrap up as well. But yep, 12-13 Wembley is the host for the next final, and there will be some German revenge. Until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.